Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. I'm your host, Nate Weitzer. Going to be bringing you a couple more solo shows here as Josh Lander is still making his way back stateside. He will be back on the pod by Thursday. Update for you there. But I quest on here, coming off back-to-back 3-1 nights, so bringing you some winners still, even if it's half the amount of picks. Like and subscribe to the page. You will always get these best bets, these player props that we bring you each and every weekday through the regular season into the playoffs. Check out thelines.com. We've got plenty of written content up there, as well as the odds finder tool that helps you get the best juice available on your money. Good night last night. 2-0 on the player props, split the best bets. The Thunder did not bring it on the back-to-back, but Jazz managed to get the win despite the illness going through their locker room. Moving on to an 8-game slate here on Tuesday, and I really like this one. 76ers minus 2.5 if you can still grab it. It's up to -3, maybe climbing a little bit as they are at the Nets, and I don't think the public is buying the Nets as a big turnaround here. I mean, back-to-back wins over Atlanta, which is a separate story in terms of just woefully underperforming. The Nets aren't particularly talented, and we're looking at Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons potentially missing a fifth straight game as they're on a back-to-back, as they just lost to the Memphis Grizzlies, which is, shows you where they were at in terms of was their offense really fixed, or did they just play Atlanta twice? They were absolutely crushed on the boards by Memphis. They lost despite getting the free throw line 30 times, and now on a back-to-back where they're 2-7 on the season, losing by an average of 15 points. As home dogs, Barclays Center, one of the worst home court advantages in the league. They're 4-15 as home dogs, and they're 2-8 against this really good Atlantic division. They did get the Sixers last time, 136-121. That was basically the product of a random Cam Thomas unconscious game, a 40-burger from Cam T when he's going to shoot every single time. That's basically what you need to win a high-scoring game if you're the Brooklyn Nets. Also, Simmons was in there for a few. He really helped them push the pace and get some points. Right now, under Kevin Ollie, they're 3-4 with, like I said, 2 of those wins against Atlanta, 1 against Memphis. And they are scoring a lot higher of a percentage off threes, 6th highest in the league. And the 8th highest of their points are coming off turnovers, which to me is the biggest number that jumps out and says, bet Philly here, because Philly is number 1 limiting points off turnovers since the All-Star break. They have the second best assist to turnover ratio since that break, or in their last 4 specifically. They appear to have figured some stuff out. They lost to red hot Boston, red hot Milwaukee, full exception there. Beat Charlotte. Yeah, it's Charlotte. And then they beat Dallas. But really, it's the lineups that Nick Nurse has seemed to figure out here. We're talking Lowry, Buddy starting, Mo Bamba starting. So you get B-Ball Paul Reed back in his familiar role off the bench instead of trying to carry the load with Embiid out. Mo Bamba's giving them really good minutes. And Batum finally getting a little healthier, can at least, be that Swiss Army knife, jump in where you need him. He can probably do a pretty good job on Mikal Bridges, who, as we talk about, don't love him as the number 1 option. If Cam Thomas is out, he's the number 1 for sure in terms of usage rate. Brooklyn is dead last in rebounding rate in their last 4. So after getting crushed by Memphis on the boards, that's a weak spot for Philly. So it's nice to see that they're not going to have as much trouble here on the boards. They are top 10 limiting offensive rebounds in their last 4 here, as well as assists, as well as 3-pointers attempted. So all the numbers seem to kind of line up here to say Philly is matching up well against this Nets team. I think we believe Philly is the better team. We don't really give much credence to the home court here at Barclays, and then you get the rest advantage for the Sixers. So I think it's a time to hit the button there on Philly, get that -2.5 or 3, and if it rises, maybe you got to parlay it with something else, but that money line for Philly should be good here as they try to get on track and stay out of that play-in. Another big East Coast game, I guess I'm staying on the East Coast, is Boston at Cleveland here, but no Donovan Mitchell, no Max Strus for the Cavs, and I'll still take the over 215, basically counting on the Celtics to score about 115, and I think the Cavs will be around covering this +8. It was sort of a stars out bet situation at first when thinking, but I don't want to get on those train tracks again when the Boston Celtics are coming through. Like they are just absolutely insane right now. This All-Star break absurdity. Since then, they're 128 a game, 55 and 45% splits. They probably are going to once again break the record for offensive efficiency right now. They're also kind of on extra rest after just demolishing the Warriors on Sunday. Starters get a little time off. So on 2 to 3 days rest, if you consider that this situation, they're 15-1 straight up. They score 126 a game. And they're 10-4 to the over in that situation, plus 8 points per game. You say, well, Cleveland's obviously a tough matchup defensively, and they're going to lean on that defense without Donnie. For what it's worth, their defensive rating is 6 points worse when he doesn't play this year. It's 117. Their 3-point shooting is better, and Darius Garland picks up the slack, 23 a game, 49 and 52% from three in the games he's played without Donnie this year. They still score 109.5. So it's not like they're a candidate to only be around 100, as well as Boston's playing defensively. They're going to allow some points here, especially with Cleveland at home, especially with the stakes of this game in terms of just a barometer for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I mean, Boston, because they score so consistently, 116 plus in 7 straight on the road, 121.5 is what they're averaging there. It's hitting 17.5 threes. They've gone 14 straight, no matter where they're playing, getting at least 216. So getting over this total. They haven't faced a defense quite as good as the Cavs. I don't think it necessarily matters the way Boston is moving it in and out. Like, they're not even getting free throws in this span to score all those points. It's just the most effective offense we've ever seen in the regular season. And I don't think they're necessarily going to cool off just because Cleveland has great rim protection. They haven't been a great defense since the All-Star break necessarily. And a small sample, they're allowing 112. They're 20th in opponents' three-point shooting. And the last 6 times these teams have gotten together, it has been, the Celtics have done their part to score 117. It is 5-1 to the over. The first 2 of those meetings went to overtime, and I think at least one of them would have gone under this total if it didn't get to overtime, get the extra 13 points. But look, I mean, they were played at a slow pace. There still were points to be scored. Boston still did their part. So if you are concerned about this total and you want to take the Celtics over 111.5 as their team total, I think that's pretty low. But I just think Cleveland, with their stars out, they're going to find a way to grind and get to around 105, regardless of how much Boston scores. But I think Boston's probably going to be around 120 again. Like, you are not cooling off this offense unless they just happen to miss a bunch of shots. But they've shown they can mix it up and get in there. As long as Porzingis is cleared, as long as Jaylen Brown is cleared, both guys are technically questionable, but should be in there. And Boston should once again, assert their dominance over this conference with another great offensive performance. Total's just a little too low, given how good Boston has been. So that's the 2 picks for best bets. Tune in for player props as well, and continue to come back each and every weekday until we see you next. Happy betting.